Welcome to the Pocha podcast at the intersection of brown pride and assimilation. I'm Kat.
I'm Charlene.
And this is our year-end Weedy.
Oh, it's the end of 2021, Kat.
And I'm so glad that I get to spend it with you, with wine, and we also have a guest.
We have a guest. Very exciting. Yes, we are closing out the year with an excellent guest and a glass of wine, and we're ready to go.
Absolutely. So who is our guest?
We are so excited to welcome author, entrepreneur, chingona, Yvette Bodden. I hope I said that correctly. Yvette, correct me if I didn't. Bodden. I wanted to say Bodden. The double D's messed me up.
The double D's everyone up.
The double D's will mess people up all around. But yes, your pieces have appeared in a variety of magazines. You have a digital platform that has all sorts of amazing stuff that we've been looking through. And you have a book that we are excited to talk about as well. So thank you so much for joining us. We would love for you to just give a little introduction so folks know who you are.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I have my glass of wine as well, and I'm so excited to dive in. So I started Awakened Woman, and we'll say AW because it's a mouthful, in 2018. And it was a little while after my divorce. So I was with my ex-husband for 10 years. We got divorced. I went through a really a significant depression. It put me in a really dark place, and I honestly felt lost. I had lost my marriage. Shortly after my divorce, I lost my job. So there were a lot of losses, and I had to figure out who I was. And I have to tell you, I do believe that we all have pain, but I've been able to turn my pain into purpose, and I wouldn't take it back. I love what I'm doing. I'm discovering something new about myself every day. I love it. I love inspiring women.
Beautiful. We need to be inspired.
Absolutely. And and it's also poignant to like end a year, but also January is when people start fresh. They have their own whatever that they're going to do, give up, start new, whatever it is. So this is a great way to get into that and jump into
Absolutely.
2022.
Yeah, yes. Some people say goals, some people say resolutions. I've stopped saying resolutions. I don't like the word anymore. I sort of just set goals for myself. Perfect. I just think it's a nicer way to start the year as opposed. It's almost like when you make these resolutions, I don't know. It's for me, I feel like I'm setting myself up for failure because you're talking about a resolution, something that literally if you don't do, it's like it's a failure. I don't know. That's my mentality, but
it lends into that binary of like either you're successful or you're a failure, and even failing can be a success, but we don't often see it that way. Before we get into your book and your digital platform, we always ask our guests what Pocha means to you, and well, first if you've heard the term and what it means to you.
I have heard the term, but in all fairness, I don't know. I honestly feel that like I've heard it in movies, and I'm being honest, but I don't really trust the film industry. So I'd rather listen to the authentic meaning behind it. So if you can actually honor me with letting me know what that is, educating me, because I don't trust, what's out there. So I'd rather you tell me what it is. Is that fair?
Very fair. So for, and we have had, we and some of our listeners may have had this in different forms in our lives, but it was for at least us two derogatory. And it was used to kind of shame that you are an assimilated into white society Latina individual. So you may not speak Spanish or Portuguese for some of our Latina relatives, or you may not speak it well. Like in my case, I don't speak it well. You've lost some of the cultura. You don't practice some of the, like you don't do a complete altar for Day of the Dead. So Pocha has been used in this derogatory way. And we have decided to reclaim it. Like, yeah, that's us. And we're trying to bring the best of what we can bring, whatever that may mean, at that intersection of brown pride and assimilation. So what that looks like for us is beautiful, is different, is taking the best of many worlds and bringing it to the table.
Yes, and for you, Yvette, and other listeners, we've gotten a few new folks. So if you're also hearing the definition of Pocha to us, part of the conversation and why we started this podcast is we came from different trajectories, but both of us shared that in our heritage and our ancestry, our grandparents were punished physically, mentally, abused in schools and at jobs for speaking Spanish or for having an accent. And so the fact that we have lost some of that language is not accident. It is absolutely, it was put upon them. And where we're at does not make us less Latina, doesn't make us less Chicana, doesn't make us less proud of who we are. So we're just trying to reclaim where we're at in this moment and celebrate, because our people fought for us to be here and to have equal parts or mixed parts, basic white girl and Chicana chingona. So that's where we're here.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I mean, I think one of the things for me that has been important in the journey is to learn from others. And honestly, what you just shared with me, I wasn't aware. So I'm really grateful that you shared that with me. Thank you.
So having heard that though, what does that strike any chords? Does that resonate?
I think we might need to go back.
Okay.
Come back.
Okay. We'll come back.
I mean, it's a pretty big question. I have to say, it's very original.
On the next episode with Yvette.
It's a 2-part weedy weedy.
Yeah.
You stumped me.
I like it.
That hasn't happened yet. But.
Yay. Oh,
first time.
Yeah, good job. Well, we are so excited that you're here. And for folks that are listening that maybe haven't heard your name, haven't seen the book, if people Google you, we see your website, Awakened Woman, and it's described as a digital platform designed to inspire and invigorate women, which we love. What brought you to that point? You spoke a little bit about it, but what was that awakening about, and what inspired you to want to share that with other people?
Well, when I went through the divorce that triggered the depression, I felt alone. I was in a really dark place, and even though I had the support of friends and sisters and family, I felt like it was a part of my journey that no one can help me with. And that was really difficult. And I actually had support, excuse me. So, just thinking about all the women out there who don't have friends or don't have that family support, I sort of, as I was going through the steps to get literally crawl out of the hole that I was in, I thought about I'm so sorry. I thought about creating that resource that would help other women. And I haven't looked back. I really feel that it was something that was coming from a bigger place, and I had to do it. It's really changed my life entirely.
So we educated you on what a pocha is. Educate us. What's an awakened woman?
Man, you're a tough crowd.
She's like, I saw the wine. I thought this was gonna be like just chill, but no.
Yeah,
this is chill. This is
pretty
chill.
deep for
on a Friday night.
An awakened woman. So an awakening for me was coming to grips with who I am, my mistakes, my experiences, good and bad, embracing all of me and waking up to who I truly was and owning Yvette with all her faults. The interesting about awakenings is, so when I wrote the book, it's written in 2 parts. The second part is my awakening. And I have to tell you, since the book was published, I have had another awakening, which is really interesting because I thought, okay, I had this awakening. I'm coming into my own. I'm becoming the woman I'm meant to be. But I've just had another awakening in the past year. I mean, COVID, my
Mm.
dad came down with COVID. My mom got really sick. My daughter went off to college. Everything
Mhm.
just, and the world is completely different. And I feel that I'm different. I have changed, and I've really had another awakening. I feel that life is really short, and I've taken it for granted. I think a lot of us have. And now I'm in the place where I feel that, you know what? I only live once. I'm going to create the life that I envision. So I've actually had another awakening. You
So
heard it here first.
a new book is coming.
Yes, actually, there is a new book coming.
Yay. Perfect.
But it's going to be a lot more saucy.
Oh,
I
I
love
like it
saucy.
already. Right.
Yes, I love saucy. And I'm feeling, I certainly feel a lot of what you're saying resonates with me. And I'm sure this is why you have found success with the website and with the book, because this resonates with so many people, whether a long term relationship that turned into a breakup, or I myself went through a really, really terrible divorce that, exactly like you're saying, my awakening, I didn't write a book. I started playing roller derby. We all find our thing. That was my awakening. That's actually how I met Kat. That's a whole other episode that you can listen to. But I appreciate that you felt the need to share that so that other folks wouldn't be feeling that loneliness that you were feeling in that moment. So um, on that note, you've interviewed several Latinas, several Latina people. Do you find, or have you found, a common thread, something that you're sort of pulling, that okay, this is the similarity, or something that you can take with you?
I do. I think with social media and just, I don't know, this new modern society, and I'm not that old, that we're living. You're my witness. I'm not that old, but I find that and I have to speak for myself. For many years, I was seeking perfection,
Mm,
and I find that we all. It doesn't matter what color you are, what is your economic status, what is your education. We all have challenges, and all these women that I've interviewed, the they each interview has one takeaway. One, they have shared fears, insecurity, illness, their faith, their I mean, there's so many. We all have a challenge, not a challenge, challenges. And I think
mhm,
that, to me, it's a common thread as women. The really interesting thing is we have a lot of the same challenges, and I love hearing the stories because there's something about each woman that I speak to that I connect with, one part of her story that I connect with. And I wish that we could see more of that among all women. And I'm hoping that with these stories that I'm sharing, that you sort of women will click with, you know,
mhm,
someone who's on the opposite side of the world, someone who you see on screen, someone who is a CEO. Behind all of that success and that, wealth, and there is a woman at the end of the day. And that's what I'm trying to sort of, it's like connecting the dots. I want women to understand that at the end of the day, we're all human, we're all women, and we really should feed on that instead of, kind of competing or
mhm,
being threatened by other women.
Mm. Well, on the site, aside from having interviews with women from different Latina backgrounds and different jobs, my God, there's such a variety from like
mhm,
actresses to jewelry makers. It's like it's a plethora. So on the site, you have topics that are really deep. You talked about depression, but you also have written about domestic violence, and these can be taboo topics in not just in U.S. culture, but in our Latine and a variety, like you're Dominican, we're Mexicanas. but it's still a taboo. Some of these are still taboo subjects. Why tackle these heavy hitters?
You know what's interesting? I really had to dig deep before I tackled some of these subjects. I grew up as a Dominican. We swept a lot of things under the rug, the really bad things, the taboo things, and until we don't start talking about them, we're going to continue. And I'm sure you've heard the term generational curses. We're going to continue these, you know,
Mm.
bad things that happen. Um, and I'll use an example. Recently, I talked about my sexual abuse when I was 6. This has been going on in a lot of cultures for years, and it's covered up, and
Yeah.
it's continuing to happen because we are not talking about it, and we have to. That's the only way to break the cycle. And as I get older, my daughter's going to be 19. I felt that it was important for her to know what happened to me and
Mm.
to make sure that it doesn't happen to her. We have to talk about it. And there is a lot of ugly, but you know, good things can come out of it. And I know that sounds a little weird, but for example, my experience, um, once I embraced it and healed from it, I'm able to help someone else. And to me, that's a gift because some women, go down a different path. So I don't know. I feel that we have to talk about it. We can't just keep in silence. We can't.
Is there anything that's off the table for you?
Hmm. Oh my gosh, your questions are killing me.
Kat did
Wow.
not get the chill memo. This is
Okay.
not enough wine. Apparently, I didn't get
I
her
know.
early enough.
I'm like on my first glass. What is what is
And
off
we're coming
the
back
table?
to Pocha. So, hold on to your pantaloons there.
Okay. Uh, um, no, not yet. I mean, if I spoke about my sexual abuse at the age of 6,
Yeah.
I don't think
Mm.
anything is off the table.
Well, first, I want to just say thank you so much for being in that vulnerable space and sharing not just with us, but with a broad audience of people. And having the courage to do that is humongous. So thank you. I think it ties back directly to what you were talking about. We see successful women, even if they are women of color, we still think, but they don't have my secrets. They don't have what I have in my closet. So I still could never be that. And when we start talking about it, then we can start to overcome and heal and challenge ourselves and find support for those secrets that we weren't allowed to talk about. So I so appreciate you bringing those really important pieces to the table, opening up the conversation with other Latinas, with other women, because we all have our story. And the more we can encourage and support, I think the better off we're all going to be, because there's nothing we can't do. We just need to find the space and the support to do it. So thank you so much for that. You are not just a writer, you're also the author of your book, as you've been talking about, A Journey to Becoming the Best Self. You've described it, you've talked about it. You you described it as vomiting on the page.
That's exactly what it is.
Love that. Can you talk a little bit about the book, and also where did that expression, like, why did that expression come to you?
Where do you find these things?
Listen, I will dig and look for things.
Cat digs.
I love that. Well, the book is literally an account of what I went through after my divorce and with the depression, coming out of the depression. And, I talk a little bit about the dating, which was, gosh, it was a nightmare. And
Mhm.
just all the emotions that come with being on your own. And I literally have to figure out who I was by myself, because when you're with someone, I think no matter what amount of time, you sort of become, it's almost like you mold yourself into, a certain life. And, you do things together. And I know for a lot of women, we even start liking the things that our husbands or boyfriends like. Um, so I had to figure out, what does Yvette want? What does Yvette like? I realized that, I don't like my eggs scrambled. I like them fried. So little things like that. I had to find out who I was. And that journey I had to take all by myself. No one could help me.
Yeah.
Well, except my therapist. She she
Mad
was
props.
instrumental.
Props to the therapists. Yes.
Absolutely. So it's a raw account. And as far as the depression, I talk about it really openly. And I felt really vulnerable because I put myself out there. But there's so many people suffering in silence. If it can help one person, why not?
Beautiful. And yes, everything you're saying completely resonating with me. I was in a 16-year relationship from the time I was 14 till the time I was 30. So yes, even like, where do I go by myself? That's not a we thing. Like, what do I want to do? It's,
Well,
and
what's
you're
interesting?
in your 30s. You're like, how the hell did this even happen?
But what's funny? So when I, sort of got myself into a semi not normal, sane place, I
Mhm.
started what I call it, dating myself, and it's in the book. I went to the movies by myself.
Mhm.
I remember it was something Barcelona. It was a Woody Allen film. It was a great film.
Mm.
I went to see that movie. I took a pole dancing class.
Oh,
I
okay.
Love
went
it.
to shoot I went to a shooting range. I tried. I went. What was the other thing? Oh, the silk ropes. The what?
Oh
The
yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh,
I
fascinating.
tried. I For the first time ever, I took a plane by myself. I had never traveled by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So all these things led up to figuring out who I was, what I liked, what I didn't like. Oh, this is a good one. Sitting down at a restaurant having dinner by myself.
Mm.
And I still do it today, and I've been in a 8-year relationship. I like to go once a month, twice a month, sit at a restaurant, have a glass of wine, have a nice dinner by myself.
Wow.
You have to
This sounds
sleep.
like a much healthier way to handle a divorce. Because I was like, you still live with your
Well,
mom? You just got out of the pinta? Let's kick it. That's not good.
girl,
Not
yeah,
good.
and then you have, Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc as your best friends. So no, we
Yes. The coping. The
we
coping.
we have some of that too in there. And there, I did reference it in my book. I think it's normal, and we cope in different ways, but eventually we have to, for ourselves, and
Yeah.
and those around us, our loved ones. Whether it's for me, it was my daughter. I had to figure out how to cope in a healthy way. I did
Beautiful.
have that moment though. It's
I'll be
wine just makes everything better.
truth. I saw a TikTok some time back. I know. I know. I went down a rabbit hole.
Cat in the
But
TikTok.
one of
TikTok.
the oh yeah. One of the TikToks I saw though was like, you should fear a woman who is not afraid of being alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, when you were talking about that, that's exactly what that made me think of, was like, when someone is so okay and comfortable
That's right.
being by themselves, doing things by themselves, like you said, travel, restaurant, something as simple as eating by yourself, which some people just cannot do,
Yes.
is super important, is something that you should try. Even if you find out that that's not your, like, you just can't, try it,
Try
give
it.
it a go. Because if you
Absolutely.
can't be by yourself, then you cannot take that prison cell. Just what,
I don't know. I gotta tell you, I feel like I am my best company. Whoever comes now, it's just like icing on the cake,
I
because
love that.
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Like I'm pretty, I I like myself.
Yeah.
I like myself now. I
We
didn't
like
like
you
myself.
too.
I didn't like myself for a long time, so I enjoy this time.
I love that. I love that. And you're right, Kat. That's power. That
Mhm.
is power when you don't need even the company of another person to be okay.
But you know what I realized? Well, I don't need a man, but I like the company. I like the
Perfect.
company, but I
And
don't
that's a
need it.
different space to be in. If
It is.
it's like working when you don't have to. I've never been in that place, but I can imagine.
Oh, when you get there, let me know what the recipe is, because I've
Right?
not been there.
Here we are on the journey. Where can people find the book?
People can find the book on Amazon.com and
Okay.
BarnesandNoble.com.
Awesome. All right.
I just want to say that even so, I'm a queer woman, and even pieces of what you have been saying, from what I have taken a look at on the digital platform, there is still something to learn. There is still something to feed off of. So this isn't just for one very specific audience. It really spoke to me in different ways, and I appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Thank you so much. You know what's interesting when I write, because there's close to 500 articles on the site. And when I write, for example, about relationships, I really am careful about, we're we can't assume that everyone, for example, for myself, I can't assume that everyone is in a relationship with a man. Some women,
Mhm.
there's different types of relationships. So I really try to make sure that these articles are general as opposed to specifically speaking about
Mm-hmm.
heterosexual relationships, because I think relationships in general, a lot of the issues are the same. Not all, but a lot of them are the same. Infidelity, insecurities,
Absolutely.
abuse. There's a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of overlap there. So thank you so much for sharing that. That means a lot to me.
And thank you so much for creating this page. Without being pitched to talk to you, we wouldn't have found this. And it
No.
really is a gem. Like seeing the different categories, looking through it, scrolling through it. There's like almost something every day you can pick from, read about. That's really powerful.
Oh gosh, you made my night. Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Oh well, thank you. And one of the parts about your platform, about your book, it's all about inspiration. You've talked about that, inspiring women, being an inspiration. What inspires you?
Women like you. Women inspire me. Life inspires me. Just the world around me really does inspire me. I want to do better. When I'm gone, I want to leave something that made the world better. I know that sounds idealistic, but um, there's so much negativity going around that I want to be a light for someone, for anyone.
And you
You're
are.
gonna make me cry.
No, well,
Aw.
hey, you know what? That's an emotion that sometimes we are not comfortable in, but we have to learn to be comfortable in. So yeah.
And there's strength in it.
And there's strength in
There's
tears.
strength in tears. It's okay. You can cry and be a chingona and take over the world.
You're
That's fine.
no, unless you're Oprah, I'm not crying.
Damn. You know what? Save the tears for Oprah. You're right.
What is that? Smile now, cry later.
Smile now, cry later. That's
There you
right.
go. Smiling
Back,
now.
back to the OG. Um, what words would you leave us with? Our listeners, our familia, our gente that has been with Pocha Podcast. What would you leave us with?
um, I think for me, my biggest lesson has been owning who I am and finding worth in the woman, in the human being I am. I had a lot of um, just issues with my cultural identity, and just being a woman. We have challenges, but I've learned that, the challenges and overcoming the pain, it makes you stronger, and just coming into the realization of what you bring to the world, the value that you add as you are. It's amazing. Once you have that, it's almost like a superpower. Once you just sort of embrace yourself, no one can take that from you. I think it doesn't matter where you come from. I think once you sort of step into that superpower, no one can take you on because you love who you are and no one can take that from you.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional.
It's it's all good.
It's self-worth is a big thing for me. Because for a really long time I didn't value myself. And I can honestly say that once I learned that I am worth everything, I've never gone back. And I
Mm.
won't. So I think that is something that we all need to learn. We all have value. We all have worth. We just have to know that we do.
I love that. I think that's certainly a struggle we talk about all the time. Our worth outside of our accomplishments or outside of doing or our work or our
Or a bank
kids or
account.
our
Mm.
exactly like you are worthy because you woke up again. And what are you going to do with that? So I appreciate this journey that you're on, that you're sharing with people. It's absolutely emotional because it's important. It matters, and it matters to many people beyond you, beyond your daughter. So I appreciate you sharing that with the masses, and we encourage our listeners to check out the website, get the book from Amazon. You can do digital or actually order the, if you like the paper in your hands, you can order that version as well.
I still do that, by the way. Do
Oh
you
yeah.
guys? I have a library of books.
Yes. I love
You do
paper.
too?
I well,
I
and
like the smell.
I'm very
Turning
like
the page. I love
I
that.
don't like I'm kind of bougie in the way that I don't like used books that are like bent or torn or
No, I
no.
don't either. I like new books.
I
I
like
know.
new books.
So we're
I
both bougie.
okay. Book bougie. That's okay.
I'm all whatever used. Okay.
Yeah, I mm-mm.
No.
Wait, but you're not getting off scot free here.
Oh, yes,
We're
we had to
coming
go
back to
back.
this
See, look, I
because
was ready to
you
go.
did mention like some overcoming some cultural issues and whatnot.
Mm.
So at the top we did talk about what and educated you and maybe some new listeners who are joining us what a pocha is. So given that, what parts of the pocha explanation resonated?
I feel stumped.
Well, oh, maybe this means you're going to come back on for book 2 and give us
Oh, I
what that
like it.
is.
Yes.
Then,
Okay. Maybe I'll take you up on that. You know what it no, you know what's interesting that coming on here, you asked me these questions, and first of all, it's the first time anyone's asked me those questions. Um in the over the past I think last interview or two, I've actually started talking about cultural identity and about some shame for myself personally, when I was younger. And these are topics that I'm still sort of exploring. And I actually have an interview that I'm publishing next week that is going to dive deeper into cultural identity, into colorism. So I'm literally
Mhm.
still exploring these things, and I have to tell you, it's a very it's a challenge for me because I'm still discovering um, myself. I really am. I'm being completely honest. So
That's a
that was
fair answer. That's we're we do that every time we record this podcast. We do that
Mhm.
every time we walk out the door. We're still dealing with the parts of the cultura that we want to hold on to and embrace and teach our children, and the parts that feel or that we're told are unprofessional, or that we know if we want a seat at this table, we can't go in there all brown and code switching and all like we can't do that if we're going to go sit at these certain tables, and we deal with that every day. So that's a real place for you to be, and I appreciate your honesty. Know that that's where we're coming from too, and that's the premise of this whole podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was something actually, Charlene, that you had said several episodios ago that we each systemic oppression, racism, white supremacy, that attacks us in so many different ways. So we each are coming into that place from so many points. So for some of us, we are still discovering, still coming to terms with, understanding, finding ourselves. And there are some who are like, tienen bandera, they're going into all of the things loud and proud, and that's great. And we each have our own self-discovery and path to get to whatever part we are.
I really appreciate you sharing those words because I don't want to make up the answers. I am completely honest in my journey, and that is a topic that I'm unafraid now. Contrary to maybe a couple of years ago, but I'm unafraid to sort of dive in and and talk to people about their experiences and read articles about what the history, and that's where I am in that process. But it's for me, it's part of the journey, and I'm still learning.
I hope
about myself too.
I hope that's part of book 2 is a awakening on that front as well. Like there's so many layers to the awakening. It's like an onion. Woot, 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 woot.
It is, isn't it? But it's interesting because when I had my first one, I swear that I thought, okay, I'm awakened. I am, on this path, on this journey. I'm good. No. There's another wave. I just had another wave with COVID, and I'm sure there'll be others.
That's the beauty of it. We just get better and better, and we're here for it. So thank you again for the awakeness that you're sharing with us, and we look forward to the new layers, and
many more books.
Many more books and articles. Yes, definitely. If you have 5-10 minutes that you want to pop on and read something that's going to give you a new perspective, definitely hop onto the website. There's a ton, as she said, like 500 articles for you. There's something on there for everybody.
And they're categorized so that you can Monday, this is what I'm going to read about. Tuesday, this is what I'm going to read about. Wednesday. And they're in bite size. It's not like a heavy novel. They're bite-sized portions that are perfect. It's like a buffet.
It's great because that was my purpose. I wanted to write these articles that women could read. I mean, time is a luxury. I want women to be able to read them, on their way to the bus, on their way to pick up their child, on their way to, on the train. Literally takes 7 to 8 minutes to read because we don't have a lot of time. So I have to put, X amount of information in just a few minutes. So there's substance and there's something to learn in each article.
And I find it fascinating that you are on this journey of writing because that's not your degree. Not to say that our degree is what we do, but that is just something that was of interest to me. That you're starting to write and on a different path. That's awesome.
It's really interesting that the journey is really determined by us. Mm. So, we can change our path at any time.
It's up to you, Kat.
My huaraches are going to get all sorts of worn out on this journey.
Tomorrow, I will begin my journey to being a millionaire.
Hey, yes. I'm on that journey. I'm on that train.
I love it. I'm going to get on. I want to get on with you. Next stop, pick me up.
Yay. Awesome.
Well, we have been joined by Yvette Bodden, writer, author,
Bodden.
Mama. Bodden. It's Bodden. Have another sip.
I know.
Her book is A Journey to Becoming the Best Self. You can get that online and also check out her digital platform, awakenedwoman.com. That's awakened-woman.com. Also, just like literally Google her. She comes up all over the place, literally.
Yes.
Or wherever you get your libros favoritos. Mm-hmm. And this has been the final Weedy Weedy for 2021 on the Pocha podcast. I'm Kat.
I'm Charlene.
And we'll see you on the flip side.
Bye.